The night my husband told me he wanted a divorce, I was standing at our kitchen counter, cutting a birthday cake I had baked for myself. 33 candles. I had blown them out alone because he was still in his home office on a call, and I hadn't wanted the kids to wait any longer. Ben had eaten 2 slices and asked if he could go back to his video game. Sophie had fallen asleep on the couch with frosting on her chin, and I stood there in the kitchen at 9:45 at night, cutting a piece of cake I didn't even want, listened to my husband laugh softly behind a closed door. Not the kind of laugh he used with me, a different one, warmer, more unguarded. When he finally came out, he sat across from me at the kitchen island. He had that look he got when he was about to deliver difficult news on a project. Composed, measured, a little rehearsed. He said, "Laurel, I think we should talk about our future." I already knew what he meant. I had known for almost 2 years. I took a bite of birthday cake, set down my fork, and said, "Okay, I'm listening." "I want a divorce," he said. "I think it's the right thing for both of us." I nodded slowly. I looked at the single birthday candle I hadn't thrown away yet, still sitting on the edge of the plate. I thought about everything I had spent the last 22 months quietly building, piece by piece, while he thought I wasn't paying attention. Then I looked at him and said, "I think so too. I'll sign whatever you need." He blinked. He had not expected that. He would never understand how long I had been waiting for him to finally say those words out loud. Let me go back to the beginning, because none of this makes sense without it. My husband and I met when I was 25. I was a graphic designer at a mid-size firm in Chicago, just starting to get traction in my career. He was a real estate developer, ambitious in that particular way that's attractive when you're young and still believe ambition is a personality. We dated for 2 years, got married, and moved to the suburbs of Columbus when he landed a major development contract. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd find something remote or commute or figure it out. Then I got pregnant with Ben, and figuring it out became harder. And then Sophie came along 18 months later, and by the time I looked up from the blur of infants and toddlers and sleep deprivation, I had been out of my field for 3 years. My software skills were outdated. My portfolio felt stale. My husband was pulling in good money and told me there was no rush, that the kids needed me home, that we were doing great. I believed him. I chose to believe him. The years settled into a rhythm I'm sure you can picture if you've lived it. Up at 6 to get the kids ready for school, drop-off, grocery runs, laundry, pediatrician appointments, school pickups, dinner on the table by 6:30, baths, homework, bedtime stories, lights out. Then the house would go quiet, and my husband would disappear into his office until 11, and I would fold the last of the laundry or prep tomorrow's lunches or just sit on the couch, watching something I wasn't really watching. On weekends he had client dinners, networking events, a golf game that seemed to expand in frequency every season. I stopped asking who he was meeting. He stopped volunteering the information. We functioned. We didn't fight. We were courteous to each other in the practiced way of people who have quietly agreed, without ever saying so, that real conversation is more trouble than it's worth. I told myself this was just what marriage looked like after 7 years and 2 kids. I told myself I was being ungrateful. We had a nice house in a good school district. The kids were healthy. He wasn't cruel. I told myself a lot of things. It was a Tuesday in February when I found out. He had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter, which he almost never did. He got a notification while I was standing right there, a message preview, just a few words, from a contact saved only as initials. I'm not going to repeat what it said, but it was specific enough that there was no charitable interpretation. I stood very still for a long moment. The dishwasher was running. Sophie was upstairs napping. Ben was at school. I stood there and I felt the floor shift underneath me in that way it does when your body understands something a full 3 seconds before your mind catches up. Then I closed the laptop. I started the next load of laundry. I picked up Sophie from her nap and made her a snack, and helped her color a picture of a horse. I drove to pick up Ben and asked about his spelling test. I did not cry until both kids were asleep that night, and I was in the shower with the water running hot enough that it hurt. I thought about confronting him. I had every right to, but I also knew, with a clarity that surprised me, exactly what would happen. He would apologize. He would say it was nothing, it was a mistake, it was over. He might even mean it, at least temporarily. And I would be back in the same house, the same life. Except now I would be the wife who had cried and begged and been reassured. I would have no leverage. I would have nothing. I had no job, no income, no current portfolio, no savings in my own name. Ben was 9 and Sophie was 5. I wasn't going anywhere like this. So I made a decision that night in the shower, and I dried off and I went to bed and I never said a word. I want to be clear about something. I am not a naturally calculating person. I'm a graphic designer. I like clean layouts and clear communication. What I did over the next 22 months was not the plan of someone cold-blooded. It was the plan of someone who was cornered and decided, very quietly, not to be. The first thing I did was find my old design textbooks in a box in the basement. The field had moved on while I was away. I needed to catch up. I signed up for an online certificate program, evenings only, after the kids were asleep. I used a gift card to pay for the first month so it wouldn't show on any shared account. I studied at the kitchen table between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. 3 or 4 nights a week. I rebuilt skills I hadn't used in 7 years. I started a new portfolio, small projects at first, working for free for a nonprofit that needed a rebrand, then for a friend's small business, then for a startup that found me through a referral. By month 8, I was charging for work again, not much, but something. I opened a checking account at a credit union across town, one he had no connection to. I moved a small amount from the household account each month, always within normal grocery and errands variation, never enough to notice. $40 here, $60 there, some months more if there was room. I also started running, not for him, not to look any particular way, just because I needed somewhere to put the anger and the grief and the exhaustion that I couldn't express anywhere else. I ran at 5:30 in the morning before the kids were up. I ran in the cold and in the rain. I got faster. My husband noticed some of the changes. I could tell by the way he looked at me sometimes, a flicker of something uncertain. But he didn't ask. I think he told himself I was just going through a phase. Bored housewife finds a hobby. He had no reason to look more carefully, because in every way that mattered to him, I was exactly the same. Dinner was still on the table. The kids were still cared for. The house still ran. That was intentional. Around month 14, I called a family law attorney. Her name isn't important. What mattered is that she was sharp and practical and didn't waste my time. I told her everything, the affair, the finances, my situation. I asked what I needed in order to negotiate from a position of strength rather than desperation. She told me clearly. Evidence of the affair, communications, hotel records, anything documented. Evidence of marital assets, bank statements, investment accounts, any property purchased during the marriage. And her words, evidence of anything he might be hiding. That last one turned out to be the most important. Over the following months, she quietly began pulling records. He had moved money. Not all of it, and not obviously. He was careful. But there was a condo in a neighboring suburb, purchased 18 months prior, that wasn't in either of our names, as the LLC that owned it had been registered to a woman named Tricia, who happened to be listed on his company's payroll as a senior account coordinator. The condo was worth $340,000. I sat in my attorney's office when she told me, and I looked at the wall for a long moment. Then I said, "What do we do with this?" She said, "We wait for him to make the first move, and then we make ours." He made his first move on my birthday. Ben and Sophie had eaten cake and gone to bed. My husband came out of his office and sat across from me and told me he wanted a divorce. He said he thought we had grown apart. He said he thought we both deserved to be happy. He had a folder with him, a draft agreement he had apparently had drawn up without telling me. The house would go to me. He would take the kids, primary custody, because he had stable income and I hadn't worked in years. He would pay me $200,000 as a settlement. I would have visitation, twice a month. He slid the folder across the counter toward me the same way I had once watched him slide a contract toward a client. I opened it, I read it, I took the pen he offered. I said, "I have one condition before I sign." He said, "What's that?" "We keep this between us until after the holidays. The kids don't need their routine disrupted right now. We act normal in front of them and in front of your family. When things calm down, we tell them properly." He agreed. He was visibly relieved. He had expected a scene. I could see it in his shoulders when they dropped. He had prepared for begging, for accusations, for an ugly fight. He didn't know what to do with calm. I signed the document. He didn't realize that what I had signed was not a surrender. It was a delay tactic. I had just bought myself 3 more weeks. Those 3 weeks were strange. We moved through the house like actors in a play that only I knew the full script to. He made an effort, helped with bedtime some nights, came to Ben's basketball game, sat beside me at dinner, and made the kind of small talk that people make when they're trying to convince themselves. Everything is fine. Sometimes I caught him watching me with that uncertain look again, like he was trying to figure out what he had missed. He was going to need a lot longer to figure that out. I used those 3 weeks to finalize everything. My attorney filed the preliminary paperwork. My portfolio, rebuilt over nearly 2 years, landed me a full-time offer from a branding agency in Columbus, remote first, $68,000 a year to start. I signed the offer letter on a Tuesday morning after dropping the kids at school and sat in my car in the parking lot of a Panera and let myself cry for about 4 minutes. Then I drove home and made a grocery list. I also signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment 6 minutes from the kids' school, sunlight in the mornings, enough room. Mine. On a Saturday afternoon in early January, I asked my sister to take the kids for a few hours, and I sat down with my husband at the kitchen table. I had a folder of my own this time. I set it in front of him. He looked at it. He looked at me. "What is this?" "Open it." The first page was a printout of the LLC registration for the condo in Tricia's name, with the purchase date highlighted. The second page was a property record showing the assessed value. The third page was a credit card statement with charges for furniture, home goods, and a security deposit. All on a card I hadn't known existed, all during our marriage. I watched him read. I watched his jaw tighten. "Laurel." "I'm not finished," I said. The fourth page was a cell phone record, a second line on an account registered to him, active for nearly 3 years, that I had never been on. The fifth page was a hotel record. There were others. I closed the folder and folded my hands on top of it. "The agreement I signed isn't notarized yet," I said. "My attorney tells me that means it's not enforceable. So what I'd like to do is start over." He didn't speak. His face had gone a particular shade of pale that I had never seen on him before. "Here's what I'm proposing," I said. "The house stays with me, as agreed. The condo, which is a marital asset regardless of whose name it's in or what shell it's sitting in, is liquidated and split 70-30 in my favor, given the circumstances. Primary custody goes to me. You have the kids every other weekend and 1 evening per week. You pay child support. We communicate about the kids through a co-parenting app, not by phone, not in person unless necessary." I had practiced this. I had said it to myself in the shower and on my morning runs until it felt like something I could say out loud without my voice breaking. "If you don't agree," I said, "my attorney files everything she has with the court. The asset transfers, the hidden account, the communications. Your company has investors, I know. I imagine they'd have questions." The kitchen was very quiet. Outside, a neighbor was running a leaf blower. It was a weirdly ordinary sound. My husband put his hands flat on the table. He looked at them. He looked at me. "You planned this," he said. "I protected myself," I said. "There's a difference." He signed the new agreement that afternoon. His hand shook a little. I noticed and I felt nothing about it, which surprised me. I had expected to feel something. Satisfaction, maybe, or sadness, or both at once. Instead, I just felt clear. The way the air feels after a long rain. My sister brought the kids back at 6. We ordered pizza and sat in the living room, all 4 of us, watching a nature documentary that Sophie picked because it had penguins. My husband sat on the couch, and Ben leaned against him, and Sophie fell asleep with her feet in my lap, and I sat there in the house I was about to keep, and I thought, this is the last ordinary night of a life that was never really mine. I wasn't sad about it, not exactly. Sad would be too simple. We told the kids the following weekend, together, at the kitchen table. My husband told them we still loved them and that we would both always be there. I told them the truth in simple terms, that sometimes grown-ups realize they need to live differently, and that this was about us, not them, and that they would not lose either of us. Ben cried. Sophie asked if she could still have the same bedroom at both places. I said yes, and I meant it. It was hard. It was the hardest part. But there is a particular kind of strength you find when you have no choice but to be strong for people who are shorter than you and need you to hold the ground. I had been practicing it for 2 years. I moved into the apartment in February with the kids. We painted Sophie's room a soft sage green she had picked from a swatch at the hardware store. Ben arranged his books exactly the way he wanted on a new shelf and stood back and looked at it with a satisfaction I recognized. The satisfaction of a space that's yours. I started the new job the following Monday. Remote work, but with a real team, real deadlines, real feedback. My first project was a rebrand for a food company in the Pacific Northwest. My manager told me at the end of the first week that my concepts were strong and she was glad they had found me. I drove to school pickup that afternoon and sat in the car line and replayed that sentence about 4 times. Strong concepts, glad they found me. On a Friday evening in March, I was washing dishes after dinner when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I figured it was spam. When I looked at it later, it was my husband. He had apparently gotten a new number. Mine must have been blocked on his end. Or he expected mine to be blocked on his. The message said, "I hope the kids are doing okay. Tell Ben I said good luck at his game tomorrow." I stared at it for a moment. Then I opened the co-parenting app we had set up through my attorney and sent him a message there. Ben has a game at 10. Pickup is at the school gym. He can call you Sunday during the regular window. That was all. Short, functional, clear. He responded through the app within 10 minutes. Got it, thank you. We have kept every communication there since. It is not warm. It is not hostile. It is the correct distance for 2 people who have to share children and nothing else. I have a friend from college who called me a few months ago to catch up. She asked how I was doing, really doing, and I told her the honest version. When I finished, she was quiet for a second and then said, "I feel like you handled this too well. Like, when did you have time to fall apart?" I told her about the 4-minute cry in the Panera parking lot. She laughed. Then she got quiet again. "Do you ever regret waiting so long? Like, why not leave 2 years earlier before all the planning?" I thought about that. I had thought about it before. 2 years earlier, I had no income, no current portfolio, no savings of my own, and 2 young children who needed stability. 2 years earlier, I would have left with whatever he offered me, which was exactly what he was counting on. 2 years earlier, I would have been the woman I had let myself become, capable only of the house and the kids and the invisible work that holds a family together, and somehow worth less for it in every legal and financial negotiation I would have needed to fight. I am not grateful for the betrayal. I want to be honest about that. I am not the kind of person who says everything happens for a reason. I lost years. I lost trust. I lost a version of my future I had believed in. But I chose what I did with the time I had to work with. That part is mine. Sophie started second grade in September. She made a best friend named a girl 2 doors down from our apartment, and on weekday mornings I can hear them talking through the wall while they wait for the bus. Ben joined the school's coding club and comes home full of things he wants to explain to me. We have dinner at the kitchen table every night that I have them, and I ask them real questions, and they answer in the long, wandering way kids answer when they trust that you actually want to know. Some nights after they're asleep, I sit on my small balcony with a cup of tea, and I look at the lights in the apartment buildings across the way, all those lit windows, all those separate lives. I used to wonder what was behind each one. I don't wonder as much anymore. I know what's behind mine. On the nightstand in my bedroom, there's a framed photo of Ben and Sophie from last summer, both of them squinting into the sun, both of them laughing at something off camera that I can't remember now. Next to it is my work badge from the new job. Next to that is the first invoice I ever sent under my own name, printed on paper, a little creased, 22 months old. I keep it there because it is proof that I started before I was ready. That is the thing no one tells you. You do not have to have everything figured out before you begin. You just have to begin. You have to do the next small thing, and then the next one after that, in the dark, when no one is watching, without any guarantee that it will work. You have to decide, quietly and privately, that your life belongs to you. The rest is just time.